ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Week 23 of Major League Baseball Power Rankings. We've had a lot of exciting action like we do every week. This week, the Atlanta Braves went 6-0. The Toronto Blue Jays went 0-6 for the best and worst weeks. I decided instead of trying to mention this during the course of the Power Rankings, I'd just be upfront about it. Atlanta had a great week, and Toronto had obviously a miserable week. You still have the same teams in conversation for the wild cards, but it's becoming less and less realistic for some of those on the back end of things. We'll get into all that. Let's go ahead and get started with our power ranking. Coming in at number 30 is Detroit, who are playing spoilers and trying to fight for their jobs next season. Coming in at number 29, you got the Baltimore Orioles going through a rebuild, trying to get some rookies some experience, and hopefully next year we'll see what happens. Coming in at Miami, they need some veteran presence on this team. They have some solid prospects, and they put up a good fight, especially against Atlanta, against Philadelphia, but they need some veteran players to guide the way. You can't necessarily do it solely on prospects and new talent. Coming in at number 27, speaking of veteran presence, you need some. They need to try and get some players, some veterans from other teams who have had postseason experience. Right now, they are swept behind the ears at. It's been a tragic season for Kansas City. Coming in at number 26, you have some wonderful experience in the kids' parents, because you got like 5 Hall of Famer sons on this team, and they have Bo Bichette, who's a phenomenal player. They really need to build around him, make something happen for them. Coming in number 25, the Seattle Mariners, with whom are just kind of falling off the face of the earth, and they're never going to get above here at this point in time. I also don't think they're going to get below 25 either, unless they have a nice little tie-in. I decided to have a little fun with it and rank them lower. Having said that, this team that is always on the verge of something. Whether or not they can actually manifest it remains to be seen. Coming in number 24, the Colorado Rockies just bottomed out. They went 1-5 this week, swept by LA, split San Diego. They've got some decent talent on there, but at this point in time, you have like all-stars like Charlie Blackmon, with whom he's coming up for free agency. Who knows if he's even going to be back next year. They are just free-falling at this point. Coming in at 23, Chicago White Sox, also rebuilding. Had a rough week, 2-5, 2-2 Cleveland, 0-2 LA Angels. All of these teams are, at this point in time, playing for next year. They want to see what the rookies are going to do, and now with the rosters expanded to 40 games, it gives them some playoff experience and allows them to play spoiler. Coming in at number 22, the Pittsburgh Pirates. I mentioned the whole spoiler thing before that to Pittsburgh, because even though they are not in contention, they still make things very interesting for a lot of other players. They go 1-3 against Miami, and then 1-1 against St. Louis. Them playing St. Louis gives them an ideal opportunity to play spoilers. Like, hey, we're not going to playoffs, but we can keep you out too. Well, they can't keep St. Louis out, but they can certainly hurt their chances for number 1 seed and improve their odds. Granted, St. Louis is a little bit out for number 1 seed, but they are still very much in. Are they in play? No, they're 9 games out of Atlanta. They're not even in play. They're pretty much going to be on the road for the playoffs. So either way, it still makes some interesting divisional rivalry play. It makes things very interesting for the sports fan. Not so much for Cardinals fans when Pittsburgh beats them, but for Pittsburgh fans, just plain outright agonizing as it's been all year long how inconsistent they are. Coming in number 21. Now here lies our first in conversation wildcard team, the Giants. They are 7.5 games out. There are just too many teams to leapfrog. I mean, I get that. You're going to automatically leapfrog them by winning your games. Here's the problem. If you win 7 straight and they don't lose 7 straight, you are still in a hole. They're too far out. They really are. They had trade deadline. They kept Bumgarner because they got hot. They said, okay, let's make a run at it. Never manifested. And there is a team that did manifest. We'll get into that. Coming in at number 20, The San Diego Padres, I get it. The Padres are in last place. They have no business being that high, especially with San Francisco still in the conversation. And I get the lopsided nature of some of these power rankings. I do. It comes down to the fact that over to extra inning points, you don't get the 3, and they don't have that. And it just wins or losses in baseball. I totally get that. Still keeps things interesting because it shows that it gives you some sort of reflection of how many teams are able to capitalize on that 3-win, 9-inning regular season. At the same time, fans just want the win either way. I get that. It goes back and forth. I totally get it. Coming in at number 19, the Cincinnati Reds. They are up, dropped 1 spot from last week. They went 2-2 against Philadelphia, 0-2 against Arizona. They are in prime position to play spoiler and then see what they can do next year. Coming in at number 18, the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim got swept by Oakland, took first 2 out of Chicago, 2-4 week. They've been in spoiler mode for some time now. They haven't really been in contention for a while, especially with the West being owned by the Astros, and with Houston, or not Houston, but Oakland being a second half team, shut the door on Seattle and LA being in contention. At the same time, still great baseball opportunities for some players to break some records and to make some fun games for the fans. Coming in at number 17, speaking of added contention, the Texas Rangers get to play back-to-back series with the New York Yankees, first traveling to New York this week, and then end of the season, got home games against New York. That will be a prime opportunity for them to play spoiler if there's still if the number 1 seed is still this hot and heavy. Coming in at number 16, the Milwaukee Brewers are in contention, and they still have a very viable shot at this, unlike a team that's coming up in a moment. The Milwaukee Brewers are only 3 games out. They've just been horribly inconsistent. They split 2 games against Houston, then they take 2 out of 3 from Chicago. Taking 2 out of 3 from Chicago did a lot of good for Milwaukee. Granted, they still have the season finale today. They're probably going to end up splitting that. Isn't going to help Milwaukee's case, but they're not out of it. They're still fighting for it. Even though it hasn't been games where they looked outright defeated, they're still in it to win it. And even though they will probably be going home on the couch, they still have a lot to play for. Speaking of a lot to play for, coming in number 15, the Philadelphia Phillies. 3 games out, just like Milwaukee, still a lot to play for. It all comes down to who's going to be more consistent down the stretch. At this point in time, it could go either way. I know Philadelphia fans would love to see their team prevail. I know they get more playoff baseball. I know that Milwaukee fans will like the same thing. It comes down to who is going to play the last 3 weeks of this season, last 3 or 4 weeks of the season. Yeah, it's the 8th, so there's 3 weeks left of the season, more consistently. And can you amount enough to come back and actually dethrone one of the wild cards, being National League wild cards being the Washington Nationals and the Chicago Cubs at this point. I believe Chicago Cubs are they're wild card too. That's a tall order because Washington and Chicago have been playing better. Having said that, it's still entirely possible, especially when you have divisional games against those teams you're chasing still on the schedule. Coming in at number 14, the New York Mets are 4 games out, and because of overtime games that those 2 have played, they technically have a higher point total, but they're not a better team. They are not. I realize that they're still in competition with San Francisco, but they're just not going anywhere. 4 games out, in my opinion, in the last weeks of the season. Not impossible, but you have to have the right things going for you to do that. I'm not seeing the consistency. I'm not seeing team pitchers get hot or players get hot or things molding in the right way to make that happen for New York. Coming in at number 13, the Boston Red Sox. 7 games out. They're not in the conversation. Technically, like San Francisco is in there. They're in the conversation, but they're not going anywhere. Especially after splitting with New York in Fenway. They showed that whatever the spark they had last year, is just gone. Whether it's playoff lack or whatever call it, whatever you want to call it, playoff whatever it is, or not, whether or not their pitching and their hitting has always been stellar. Their pitching hasn't been there, and their whole overall team just hasn't been there. They're not going to playoffs, but they do have an awesome opportunity to play spoiler, and they get to play Sunday Night Baseball against the Yankees on ESPN. So tune in for that wonderful rivalry, because regardless of how either team is doing, that's always great baseball. Hence, ESPN spends billions of dollars to scoop up those games. Coming in at number 12, talk about quite a heck of a run. Arizona went from on the outside looking in to in the dead heat of things. They've had a phenomenal run. They went 5-1 this week, and I think 9 out of 10 overall of the last 10 games. They sweep San Diego. They take the first 2 from Cincinnati. I would not be surprised to see them sweep that series, which is an opportunity for Cincinnati to play spoiler if they really want to. But they're a game and a half out. They are hot on the heels of Chicago and Washington. They have plenty of time to do all kinds of things, especially only a game and a half out. They're very much right there. Coming in at number 11, the Chicago Cubs. Speaking of playoff contention, they are in the second wild card. And being in the second wild card, they are 4 games out of the division, so both are in play. Right now, with their fight against St. Louis for that division lead, it looks like whoever does not prevail is probably going to take the second wild card, unless they just fall to the earth and let some other wild card squeeze in there. I do have them currently pegged as I'm holding out hope that they're going to overtake St. Louis. I just don't see it's going to happen with the way St. Louis has really picked it up in the high gear. They're hit 80 wins the season so far. St. Louis is really kicking it, and so I see that Chicago is most likely going to be hosting the wild card game, and that makes things all the more interesting. I'm saying hosting the wild card game because I think that they're going to start past Washington, who currently owns that top spot. Again, there's 3 weeks to hash it all out, and while I get it that most of these bottom half teams are not going to make the playoffs, in fact, they have an outside chance. Milwaukee and Philadelphia, the rest of them, and Arizona. Arizona is in there too. These Chicago, Arizona, Philadelphia, Milwaukee. Those are pretty much your 4 teams fighting for one spot, given that the Washington Nationals currently own the first spot there. So most of these teams are not going anywhere, but everybody has something to play for, whether it's pride, whether it's prospect experience, whether it's play spoiler. But the most exciting thing to play for is obviously playoff seeding. So, now that we've gotten through the National League wild cards, which is a huge mess right now, with the American League wild cards more or less settled, we're looking at, barring a collapse or an unforeseen major surge, you're looking at Oakland going to Cleveland. So, anything can happen, but let's go ahead and get on into our top 10. Our power teams and our playoff contenders. Washington coming in number 10, as I mentioned, going 1-3 against New York and 0-3 against Atlanta. Really hurt their chances of any remote possibility of catching Atlanta Braves, who are 9 games over them for the division. That's pretty much off the board at this point. Now you're just trying to keep your wild card spot in Washington there. You have all of a 2-game lead over the Chicago Cubs for the first wild card to host that game. But the way they're playing this week, if you keep that up, you're not going to hold that. the same time, it is theirs to lose at this point in time. Coming in, number 9, the St. Louis Cardinals. National League Central Division leaders, and based upon the way they've just kicked it in August, barring a collapse, it's theirs to lose, the Central there. Having said that, they are 9 games out of hosting these divisional series, and they got no shot at the number 1 seed there, with LA being 12 games over. They're pretty much, at this point in time, just trying to hold on to their division lead, because the Chicago Cubs are not far behind. 4 games is not comfortable enough to rest on your laurels and just coast the season. I think they got this place because it got hot, so you ride it out, you know? Coming at number 8, the Cleveland Indians. 1.5 games out of the wild card. The AL wild card is being led by Tampa, not Cleveland. My bad on that one. With second place team being Oakland. So at this point in time, they went from division leaders to now on the outside looking in. Now it's like, okay, we've got a better chance of catching the Milwaukee. No, maybe not. They're 6 games out of the division, so they'd have to really go on a run to catch Minnesota for the division. Which is great news for Minnesota fans, but for Indians fans, what you're looking at here is you are looking at, where's the AL2, Oakland, 83 games versus Cleveland being 83. And 1 game out. They're like a game and a half out of catching Oakland for that second wild card. So that's a series right there. You have a good or bad series, one way or the other, maybe a couple in a row, and it's anybody's game at that point, which definitely makes Oakland fans nervous because they have the second wild card there, and they are chasing the number 1 wild card with the Tampa Bay Rays. And between Tampa, Oakland, and Cleveland, it's anybody's game. Anybody's game. At the same time, Oakland has things in their favor in the sense that they are a second-half team, and they've definitely turned it on. Much like St. Louis, they've come out of the woodworks and are now in different places regarding their playoff chances, but definitely in the right direction as far as getting hot at the right time. Coming in number 6, the Tampa Bay Rays have had, for Tampa standards, a very good year. Where they're struggling, as I mentioned in previous videos, is they can't win at home. Now, granted, they got the benefit of the fact that, okay, we have a home series against Baltimore and Toronto. Well, they went ahead and took 2 out of 3 from Baltimore and have taken the first 3 from Toronto. That's great to be able to rebound for your home, but these teams are not going anywhere. It pads your home record, yes, but you also lost to Baltimore at home. I mean, their best bet is to play as many road games as possible. Now, guys, we get to the top 5 now. We've got teams that are so stable. They're now fighting for the first top seeds and the host games for the playoffs here. So let's get into it. Coming in number 5, the Atlanta Braves at 89 wins. They are hot on the heels of the 92-win LA Dodgers, 3 games out. With 3 weeks to go, absolutely possible. And they're doing everything they need to be doing to get there, having taken 2 from Toronto and 3 from Washington. Getting that division win definitely helps their case in trying to chase the number 1 seed. Well, LA went from far and away the untouchable number 1 seed of the National League to now they actually have competition. It's like, okay, you're eating away at your cushion here, Dodgers, when you drop games to San Francisco. Coming in number 4, a powerhouse in terms of slugging, the Minnesota Twins are, at this point in time, a bit on the outside looking in terms of trying to chase the number 1 seed, with Houston and New York holding that at 93 and 50. You've got a 7-game gap there. I don't see them catching the number 1 seed. However, they are At this point in time, because you got two other division leaders that far ahead, you're going to be on the road either to New York or to Houston. Who do you want, Minnesota? Who do you want? Either way, you're looking at a lot of weapons, okay? You look at the same time, having said that, honestly, if you look at how they match up, I think Minnesota fundamentally has an easier path to the ALCS going through, wait for it, Houston Astros. Honest to God, I do. Granted, either one are going to be a challenge, an uphill battle, totally get that. You've got the slugging to outslug anybody, totally get that. But so do Houston and New York. They can play with anybody. And yes, you have weaknesses in the starting rotation for New York. You also have weaknesses in the starting rotation for Minnesota. They have had a point in time where they had 10-game lead on their division, and they squandered it away. Where do you want to blame? You want to blame starting pitching, bullpen, hitting? Blame whatever you want. Same time, they're in their position because they have weaknesses in their team. Every team has strengths and weaknesses, and at this point in time, the numbers, the matchups, the season series favor Minnesota's chances going into Houston. Speaking of Houston, they come in number 3. And they are in an outright dogfight for the number 1 seed in the American League. Who is going to host that ALCS? Right now, it looks like, based on the way things are going, barring some upset somewhere, you're looking at possibly a showdown with New York. And at that point in time, if you guys finish a tie record or better than New York, you get that home field advantage. And then a couple years ago, you won that in 7 games with that home field advantage. That is freaking huge, especially with LA, New York, and Houston having the absolute best home field, home records of the major leagues here. Home field is going to matter a great deal to the top 2 teams here. Coming in number 2, the New York Yankees. AL East leaders, they are so far ahead at the foregone conclusions for the division. However, at this point in time, just like Houston, home field is freaking huge. And having not been able to sweep Houston at home, while Houston did sweep you over in Houston, that gives Houston that 4-3 series advantage. So, you face a series tie with Houston, they get that home field advantage in that ALCS. And you already saw what happened last time when they had home field advantage. It didn't work in your favor. It did go an amazing 7 games. Phenomenal series, but that falls in Houston's favor. So, it's going to be particularly important that while they get players back from injured list, while they rest players, keep them fresh for the playoffs, you keep an eye on those standings here, because the only way to have home field advantage through the AL championship is going to be to actually finish with a better record. And this whole week has been very tit for tat for both teams here, with Houston going 1-1 against Milwaukee, 3-0 against Seattle. They had that loss against Milwaukee hurt their number 1 seed chances, but not significantly enough, because New York also goes 2-1 against Texas and then 1-1 against Boston. They're going tit for tat here, win a game, lose a game. It's all at the end of the week, all tied up all over again. I hear fans talk about how, oh my God, how did Houston drop a game to Milwaukee? How did New York drop a game to Texas? How did they fall to Boston? And it's like, that happens. This is not different than any other time of the season. Why everyone's talking about it now is because it's September and everyone's like, every game matters. I totally get that. But every game matters all season long. You are here where you are based upon how you've done all season. And look at it. You've got the best teams in baseball here in a dogfight and tied for the best record in the American League. Yes, that puts extra emphasis on every single game, but win a game here, lose a game there, we'll see how it settles. You've got 3 weeks left, about 21 games left in the season. A lot to, and this could very well go down to the final series, in which, for New York, that would give Texas an opportunity to play spoiler. We'll see how that plays out. Now, coming in at number 1, the Los Angeles Dodgers here reclaim the number 1 spot. I I had. Oh well, this is what my rankings give me here based upon the points accumulated throughout the season. The Dodgers are no longer as safe as they used to be. They have teams on their heels, and with Atlanta surging, they are 4 games out. It's not nearly as tight as New York and Houston, but they are no longer a sure thing for home field advantage throughout the playoffs, especially considering that the LA Dodgers are a game behind Houston and New York for the best record in baseball, which means should they get there, they're on the road if the season ended today. A lot to play for a lot of teams, a lot of things to look forward to. There's going to be some great games today. I want to know what you think about what I think. Please leave your comments in the section below. If you think teams should be higher or lower, please let me know what you think about where teams are ranked, how teams are performing. If you think I got my facts right or wrong, please let me know. I'm all about the banter and dialogue with y'all. Y'all are great fans. I love talking baseball, and I love being able to bring this to you every week. If you just happen to be happen upon this video via YouTube or Google, please hit like and subscribe. It greatly helps the channel. And as always, thank you for watching. Enjoy the games. See you next time.